I think there has been over the past, I don't know how many weeks it's been, like 6 to 8 weeks since Vice President Harris became the nominee, that a lot of people have been wrapped up in the joy and wrapped up in just the sort of dream world of having this president. I mean, how cool would it be to have this amazing woman be president, forgetting that there is a large pool of Americans who do not want that dream. They really want to go back to Trumpism. And I think a lot of people really don't see how that could be, but it is real. What do you make of what it's going to take to get from the dream and the, sort of fun of the Harris-Walz campaign to an actual first woman president?
You hit the nail on the head. We're amazed that we're at this moment and America has an opportunity. But the fact is, it is and has always been a fight. I think that's the reason why the joyful warrior idea for Kamala Harris is very fitting. Yes, we need joy. Yes, we need some relief to the dark visions of Project 2025. But the reality is we have to work, and we have to work like we've never done before to overcome all the ways in which Trump and MAGA have made it difficult for democracy to function in the swing states. And so what I make of it is the debate is a moment for us to realistically assess what's happening, and particularly in battleground states, start sending legions of people to call and text and door knock and do everything that we can to turn out the vote. That's what we're in for the next 8 weeks. And it's the kind of thing where those of us who work in politics and understand that this kind of change is a generational change. It would usher in a new era, but it isn't like power is going to concede without a struggle. We're in the moment of that struggle. And you couldn't have said it better. There's nothing more stark between a vision of the past and a vision of the future, and that we'll see tomorrow night at the debate.
Cornel, talk about the stakes here in terms of where the polls sit right now. We've seen this huge onrush of newly registered voters. You're seeing a lot of excitement for the Harris-Walz ticket among younger voters. The question is, do they wind up turning out in enough numbers to actually get what they want, which is this fresh new candidate? When you're looking at the polls, what are you seeing?
Well, they're connected, Joy, and so here's the thing. Here's where joy does actually come in, right? I'll go back to the presidential campaign of '08, which I think is similar to this that I worked on, and a lot of the polling was off, especially early on, because quite frankly we didn't have models to contend for what we saw in the surge of voting among especially young people and people of color, because they had something to vote for. And I think that's really critical. So I don't want to dismiss the joy, because the joy is important. Yeah. Because you have to give these young people something to vote for. And what you're seeing in the polls is, look, when you give them something to vote for, their enthusiasm changes. And look at poll after poll, and certainly it's sort of our internal polling that we do for Black PAC of large samples of African Americans, we've seen the motivation and the levels of importance, triple, right, in some areas with certain cohorts of African Americans. And look, African American women right now are as excited to vote as I've seen them in the polling since '08. So the joy is important, and it helps sort of the enthusiasm and the mobilization. So then it comes to turnout, right? Take a state like North Carolina. Like I saw a poll in North Carolina last week where it is tied, right? It is a dead heat in North Carolina. The last time I saw a Democrat in a dead heat in North Carolina at the top of the ticket was '08, and we won that. Yeah. And we won that because of turnout and enthusiasm. So that joy is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about the other side. Hugo, you are following what the Trump campaign is doing, because their campaign is not highly visible. But, back when I was in politics and not in media, I worked on a campaign where we didn't see the George W. Bush campaign. They were not visible, but they surely won, right? Because they had sort of an outreach into places that you weren't going to see. They weren't necessarily knocking doors. They were, at that time, getting senior citizens and senior voters to turn out mail-in ballots, which now they're against. What are they doing, and how organized are they on the ground, the Trump campaign?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point that you raise, because we have also heard a lot of the same in places like Pennsylvania, right? The state that both sides really need to win in trying to take the Electoral College. And we were speaking to a lot of local Republicans, and they were alarmed because they thought the Trump campaign's presence was really, really small for presidential. In fact, they were comparing it to us as more something akin to a midterm election. And so we went back and looked at the numbers. For a midterm election, the RNC in 2022 had about 50 paid staffers on the ground. And that is obviously lower than the RNC's projection for 2024 for this presidential cycle, when they were looking at roughly kind of 88 to 90 staffers on the ground. We are told by the Trump campaign that they have more than 50, but they won't tell us exactly what the numbers are. And, that's always a tell, because if they were proud about the numbers, they would tell you, they would boast about it. And then when we went to the Harris campaign, what we heard was there were 375 staffers in Pennsylvania alone. So that is one massive advantage. And the Harris campaign has, as of right now, going into the election with respect to the ground game. Now, the difference this time around is that the Trump campaign is relying on a bunch of outside super PACs to basically do their get out the vote initiatives. So we looked there as well, and actually what we found was it's very, very disjointed. Yes, they have data sharing agreements with the Trump campaign, but they've only recently started hiring staff to go, knock on doors, to do canvassing. And that's a real major problem for the Trump campaign, because when you're doing it this late in the race, what it means is you haven't had repeated voter contacts, which is what you need to get people to cast a ballot. And you also get low quality people who, really don't want the job because it's a 2-month thing where you're knocking on doors in the heat. And I think if you look at it in its totality, the Trump campaign's ground game, especially in Pennsylvania, you don't see it, not because they're doing it really well and they're hiding it, but really because it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, fascinating. And the other thing they're doing, that is fascinating information. The other piece of it is, Amy, what they're doing, the Trump team seems to be doing a lot of its work on social media. Trump going on these right-wing podcasts, all these young right-wing sort of, incel kings. But also, Semaphore has got this story. The organizers of a mysterious network paid influencers to promote sexual smears of Vice President Harris as Democrats rallied around her to be their presidential candidate in late July. Now, we've heard even some former journalists playing this game, but this is like a network. The network that would push the sexual smears began with more run-of-the-mill Republican talking points, but it was unusual in one way. A person who participated in his video call said none of the participants identified themselves by name, and they all joined calls with their cameras off to preserve their mutual anonymity. Misogyny is playing a big role, Amy, in the strategy on the other side of people smearing the candidate in this way. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah. Here's what we know about the way in which in the electoral space, women are defeated. This kind of misinformation and disinformation that's based on, kind of sexual lies and the specific kind of combination of attacks on race and gender, misogynoir that we see sexualized is a way that people can spread misinformation. But I think that the thing we have to stay focused on in the midst of growing disinformation that we're going to see is that the Kamala Harris campaign needs to focus above and beyond all of this, all these attacks on the core voters. We have to talk to the base. And it can seem very overwhelming when you see stuff on social media, you see things that are lies, you see people attempting to cut down the validity of Kamala Harris's leadership and of the campaign.
Yeah.
And so what we have to focus on in the last 8 weeks is the very voters who are going to make a tremendous difference and who made the difference in 2020, getting Harris and Biden into office in the first place.
Right.
And that's Black and brown voters.
Cornell Belcher, indeed, Cornell Belcher, Hugo Lowell, Amy Allison, thank you all very much. We'll bring you on back to talk about this stuff more. Thank you.